I'd like to begin by saying hello to everyone listening. I'm Mike Fabry, your podcast host, and devoted tech nut who asks cutthroat questions about unmentionables in technologies to leaders in the field. This podcast has been designed for you, our listeners, so you can get directly involved in tech taboo topics with the experts. Stay on top of the latest taboo topics by following us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or even Twitter at The Tech Taboo. As always, we encourage our listeners to write us their thoughts and taboo topics we perhaps never considered as even being taboo. I'm proud to present another good friend of mine today, Petr Burian, who reluctantly decided to join us on the show. I guess he's already heard our previous podcasts. And Petr, by the way, is the CTO of a well-known Czech IT company, LiveSport, standing strongly behind the live score site called FlashScore, which is used by 85 million sports fans worldwide. Petr was previously a full-stack developer and tech specialist, interested in performance and getting things done. But nowadays, he finds himself focusing on people and teams by combining tech and soft skills. Welcome to the show, and thanks for finally deciding to be on the Tech Taboo, Petr.
Hello, Mike. Thanks for a warm welcome. It's nice to see you again.
Great to see you too. So I'm not so old, but I do like tradition, so I've decided to go back to our previous format where we give the guest a false sense of hope retaining their dignity by throwing an easy no-brainer at them. You should feel lucky that I'm being sentimental today, by the way.
Thank you.
Shall we begin?
Let's do it.
Great. So anyways, what's more important or crucial to you as the CTO? A good technology or a good developer? Please go ahead and answer, but, kind of pretend that nobody from your company is listening, of course.
Okay. So I think the right answer should probably be both. But if I need to pick one, I think that a good developer is much more important than the technology. Why? Because technology is basically just a tool which you need also master, but there always must be a human developer who knows the tech, who knows how to use it, and finally create something special with it. So I definitely think that a good developer is my answer.
So you pretty much take a good developer over good tech any day, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. I think some of our listeners might disagree, but that's why we're all here to talk about this stuff. So why do you really feel that? Because, I'm kind of thinking if there is no good tech, you can be the greatest developer in the world. Nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, that's correct. But imagine that you have just nothing in your hands, but you are devoted, motivated, you try to create something, and I think you find your technologies anyway, try to learn them, and at the end build something special. But you also, on the other hand, you can have a lot of technologies, good technologies, but if you don't know how to use them, or you are not passionate to create something special, all those perfect technologies are then useless. So that's the reason why I believe that good developer is more important.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, definitely. But okay, from your perspective, again, how do you sort of realize who has good potential and who doesn't from a new developer, let's say, or a young developer?
Yeah, I must say that it's pretty hard, even for me, and I have been doing it for 15 years. So basically, it's about values you believe in and about your experience. And even then, I'm not sure I can do it myself and be successful. So that's the reason why we have at LiveSport a committee which consists of other colleagues from HR, there are team leaders, head of departments, and of course, top management. And this committee try to find out if a new developer, a newcomer, is good for us or not. And at the end of the day, we decide together if we give this newcomer a chance to work with us or no.
Okay, so what exactly? Maybe these are the values you were talking about before. What exactly are you looking for?
Yeah, it's primary potential in newcomers if they understand what we do, if they like the field. We are in sports, so when they like code and sport and are able to mix it together, it's a perfect match for us. But it's only just a part of the story. I need to realize if a newbie is good learner, if he tries to find something new, even in technologies that he doesn't even know, and so on. So I think it's a mixture of hard skills and, of course, and importantly, soft skills together. So a good match for us is a developer like sports, code a little bit, but has a huge potential to learn a lot of new stuff.
Okay, but is it essential to be a sports fan to work for live sport?
I think it's not the blocking thing, but it's definitely a way which can help you to manage your work better.
Well said. Nonetheless, I'm going to switch topics a little bit here again. It's not only technology or developers who can make or break a company, it's often those who are in charge, and that's you somewhat. That's truly, they really do the most damage sometimes. When was one time, or perhaps several times, but hopefully not in your case again, when you really screwed the pooch for the company? When you really fucked up, Peter?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me think about this for a while.
Please take your time.
Yeah, thanks. Fortunately, I can't remember an exact thing. Maybe it's a self-defense mechanism to forget all the bad. But I think that I need to give you something, right?
That's why we're here.
Yeah, okay. So from, let's say, last time, maybe a problematic thing is that I try to do things in details to play with work which is not fully mine but of my colleagues, and I made my colleagues slow down because it's not even my part of the role to do this kind of job. And
So why are you doing it?
yeah. I'm just
I can
asking the
see you're
same.
actually
Yeah, I'm
asking
just asking
yourself
the
the
same
same
question.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's because I used to be a developer for a long time, but I'm currently not writing any code. But still, maybe I'm trying to remember my past and try to solve things in the lower level of details, and that's exactly what I shouldn't do because I have a good developers for that.
Yeah.
So when you do all the stuff and don't let your people do the work, do what they can do the best, I think that's the moment when you can screw a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, at least we know you're not sleepwalking and changing code in the middle of the night or something like that, are you?
Hopefully not.
No, I hope so too. But I don't know if you just realized it now, but I don't think this is the first time you've thought about this. But obviously, you realize you're doing this.
Yeah,
but you
mostly
continue
yes.
to do it.
Mostly yes. There are times that I can't realize that I'm in out of my path, and thankfully I have a good colleagues with um good relationship. So they come and tell me, "Hey, Peter, stop doing this. It's our business, and go and play with something else." So if I don't realize, they push me back to my path.
Yeah, yeah, they keep you on your toes and let you know what's going on.
Yeah.
But I'm also assuming that you don't just change stuff without notifying them in advance. They know you're going to be working on something, don't they?
Mm, maybe
Uh-huh.
not.
Uh-huh.
But if they catch me, well, they can help me to move away. So thank you guys for that.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, the good thing out of this is that you do have this great communication and relationship with your
Yeah,
team and your developers and everyone there at Live Sport. But everyone can't be perfect. Is there?
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So I mean, what do you do with these troublesome people that are in the office and maybe not on the team, as they say?
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Well, I think all of this is a matter of good communication. Don't just have good tooling, environment, all those scrums and other techniques how to communicate. Uh, I don't say they are good. We use them also. They are good, but uh, the important thing is to really talk with your people. It's really necessary, and from time to time you even delay with stuff from out of work to understand what is wrong, why those things don't work, and so on. So the key part, which I believe, is communication, to understand your people and try to help them, try to be better. So
So again, I agree that communication is the key. I think not just
yeah.
to business, but any relationship out there. But again, as great as this motivation and communication, all this that you have there at Live Sport is going, you still must feel that there's some pressure that your developers are, let's say, being attacked or offered better jobs because of the competing salaries out there. How do you deal with that? You have a great member on your team, but
Mhm.
somebody approaches them with a better financial deal than you're, let's say, I don't know, willing to offer or can
Yeah,
offer.
yeah, that's definitely happens because there are a lot of companies fighting for smart people from IT. So we are not an exception. But what we do to make our people uh, interested in live sport is to combine a lot of important things. Mike, you mentioned good salary. It's important, of course. Uh, we are in IT, so perks are also important. But a good salary perks are, I think, common standard. So you need to offer a lot of more to be attractive for uh, new developers, but also for the ones work for you for a long time.
Okay, so
So,
sorry to interrupt. What are these extras that aren't standard perks, for example, that you're speaking of?
well, in at Lyspar we have free lunch, free fruits. You have access to all of knowledge from company and from outside, so you can go to uh, meetups, online courses, and so on. So this is basically what I can remember right now.
Yeah, but it sounds a little bit like Caesar. Give them bread and games, and they'll be happy. No, isn't that what?
Well,
What are you doing?
those things I think are important when you have a very good lunch. You can study what you need to your work on, or something even new, what you are interested in. It's important, right?
I agree, but I mean, again, this is something you feel sets live sport apart from the standard offers and standard perks out there.
I think this is not what is different, because all those perks are pretty standard. I think so. What is it that differs from other companies? I believe it's definitely a good project, ideally a long-term project that you can improve in time, and take care of it. So we definitely have a lot of projects in long term. It's a company which is transparent,
Ah,
stable.
this is a question people like to talk about a lot nowadays. Is
Yeah,
transparency. Yeah,
yeah.
thanks for bringing that up. Let's maybe twist the topic a little bit and get into this transparency. How do
Mhm.
you offer, guarantee, or even show transparency?
Well, as you know, Mike, we are in sports, and the pure sport is about transparency, about simple rules, about all those nice things. And we definitely honor this. And as I said earlier, the most important thing is to communicate with your people. There are a lot of information you can share, and each time you need to decide what to share and what not, because not all information to provide is a good path, because a lot of information can mess you up. So we try to put a decent amount of information, and try to answer each question which comes to us.
Well, that's actually my next question. How do you answer with all this communication and sharing of information? How do you answer those hard questions, those this or that, we have to do this, we can't do that type of questions? Who I know you have this committee, you have this group, and they help you make these, let's say, candidate-based questions. But who's actually making company-based or directive-based questions out there? Who's answering that for you guys?
Well, the beginning is to ask the simplest and most important question: why? If you are asked to do something, or on the other hand, you can't do something, you need to ask yourself why, and there must be somebody to answer it for you. And it might be a colleague of yours, it might be your team leader, or even director, the owner of company. This is most important thing to make it work in the long term, because uh, when you have a junior developer, you can ask him to do a lot of things, and he or she is doing it, learning something new, is happy. But when you have seniors, and of course we have a lot of senior developers, uh, they need more information. And basically, the most important thing for them is the answer for the question why.
Yeah.
Why we are doing something, or why we are removing, stopping this, and so on.
Okay, you keep bringing up long term, short term, whether it's projects or so. What about goals? Are you set more on long term or short term goals? As yourself, as an individual, as a company, and what do you, let's say, not to give you such a bloated question, what do you prefer your employees to be set on?
Yeah, This is a really hard question
That's again
because
why we're here.
I should answer that this depends on situation because long-term goals are needed, also short-term goals are needed.
Of course, but just give us your
Yeah,
honest, short opinion here. We
yeah,
we know that every situation is different, but if you have to choose and you want to tell your employees how to focus, what is the bottom line?
yeah, because we have been building a lot of products in long term. I'm definitely set for long term goals, but it might be a little bit tricky because the output is not uh, after the door. You can see it in the afternoon the next day. You need to explain your people what we are doing here, that the output comes in really long term, in long period of time, but still you need to be sure that you are on the right path, and how you can verify that you go the right direction and you picked the right path. I think in long-term projects, it's about setting some checkpoints, some middle goals that you can find on that path and verify that you go the right direction with proper speed, let's say.
Yeah, but these checkpoints that you just mentioned, uh, do they give any sort of verification, gratification, or sense of
Yeah.
accomplishment?
Yes.
So technically, those are actually short-term goals. We could call them. They're a bunch of little short steps or short-term goals, and for the greater good of the long-term goal.
Yeah, we can say that when you have a short time, it's just one thing task you do, and after a couple of hours you are done. You can see the output, and the long term goals is a mixture of those short term goals, sure, but uh, the difference is when I think the difference is at the beginning when you start a long-term goal. There is a lot of stuff you even don't know. What's the final deadline? Can you measure it or even imagine if the project is for 2 months or 4 months? So when you start, you definitely have an exact plan, but you still need to be prepared because a lot of difficulties are on the way, and you have to overcome it.
Yeah, I've never heard of the perfect plan, so it doesn't exist, I don't think. So again, I mean, the reason we're here today, Peter, is to talk a little bit more about tech taboos. So I'm going to switch it over a little bit to more of a tech issue,
Sure.
and perhaps you know, perhaps you don't know, or just give us your opinion. How do you feel about the old technologies being used nowadays?
Well, I like that question. Thanks for that because we have a lot of old technologies at Lysport,
Oh,
which,
I wouldn't have thought that.
yeah,
Interesting.
because when you build something in long term, you can't count only on modern and hype technologies because modern technologies and a lot of modern technologies uh, have the uh, not so good feature that they die too soon. But if you choose a traditional technology, because you may decide to call them not old techs but traditional technologies that are proved by time, that's definitely something what you can count on.
So for
Because
you, traditional technologies are synonymous with reliable technologies.
yeah, because for the time when there are where there is good documentation, where there is support from community, support from the vendor. I think those are key parts of tech that are needed to be there to build something stable and in long term. So if your use case is uh, good for a good old technology, why not to use it?
Yeah, I understand that, but don't you feel the young or new developers coming into the game are kind of, thinking that's old school and that's not cool old school? Yeah, let's use the modern stuff.
Definitely. When I said that we use a lot of old techs, I didn't mean that there are not a lot of modern HIME technologies at LifeSport. For instance, nowadays we use TypeScript, React, Node.js, Elastic, Docker, Kubernetes, GraphQL, or Kotlin. That's just a small list of technologies which are modern, and we also use them. And for young developers, but also for the experienced ones, the important is the combination of old time-proof technologies and the new ones, because those developers not even try or are willing to learn new stuff, are also responsible for stability. So they build something, they need to compose old and new technologies together and get the finest result possible.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, the majority of graduates coming out of IT schools nowadays, are they even exposed to any of these traditional or older technologies, or it's something that you have to spend your company time and money and workshops, training sessions to educate them on? Like, how much time is dedicated to that?
Well, each time a new developer come to Lysport, he or she has some sort of skill. Technologies are used, and they definitely need to learn something new. And it might be, let's say, a PHP. It's traditional technology, and when the tech is interesting for the developer, he or she has no problem to learn it.
Okay, great. So, one more little question, let's say, a quick one, simple, which I think applies to everybody out there listening, and that's related to legacy code. How do you combat all that? Like, how do you deal with it? Everyone has to deal with it, but how
Yeah,
do you guys deal
yeah.
with it?
I think we use a pretty standard approach. Fortunately, we have decent time to invest in refactoring and improving our codes. But I have to be honest that even with this, there are codes that was written by me, in, let's say, 10 years ago. So the situation is still not optimal, but we are getting better each year.
Great, great. I'm so sorry. We are unfortunately running out of time, Peter. But before you leave, there's one more traditional question we like to ask our guests, and that is, in your opinion, what's going to make the shit hit the fan in the next 5 years in the tech world?
Mm,
Hmm.
it's tough one.
And that's why we end with that one.
Um, there is one thing which bothers me, and that's the regulation of everything. But in IT world, I'm afraid that an increasing amount of regulation of, frankly said, everything is going to lead that in 5 years it may only take 5 minutes to do a simple act like open a web page and click all those 100 forms of agrees and so on, and that consumes a huge time before you go to the point where you even come to the web page. So a huge amount of regulation, which might be good if it's simple, is or will be a problem in a couple of years.
So you mean the simplicity of the regulation and how
Yeah.
easy and quickly the
Yeah.
whole process will
Yeah.
could be a problem in the future?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you very much for being here. I know it wasn't easy. Yes, but once again, thanks so much for coming to the show, Peter. We appreciate you answering our stomach turning questions, and we would love to have you back again soon because there's definitely a few topics I'd like to expand on out there that we didn't have time to get to. So please come back in the future. That would be great.
Thank you.
And before you take off, of course, like we do with everyone else, we'd like to give you this opportunity to say some final words or some words of wisdom to our listeners.
First of all, thanks for having me, Mike, and I wish all developers happy coding. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you again, Peter, and all our listeners out there. I'm your host, Mike Fabry, keeping you full of rarely spoken content to follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or even Twitter at The Tech Taboo. We wish you all the best from all of us here at The Tech Taboo. Until next time, stay healthy and help us expose taboos in technology.